This is the third video on molecular geometry, and it's the last one. And this is on what is called hybridization and orbital overlap. Covalent bonding is, as we know, the sharing of electrons. We know that electrons exist in orbitals. We're going to be concerned with the s orbital, which is spherical in shape, centered around a 3D graph structure, and the p orbitals, which look like figure eights, centered around the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. And it turns out that utilizing just these orbitals for 2, 3, and 4 electron domain geometries doesn't quite work out right. And so the idea of hybridization has come out. Hybridization is the idea that you can mix s and p orbitals to form what are called new hybrid orbitals. These hybrid orbitals can be used to explain the electron domain geometry and thus the molecular geometry around the central atom. There are three types of hybrid orbitals. You can mix one s and one p orbital when you have two electron domains. That's called sp hybridization. If you have three electron domains, you have actually mixed an s and two p's. That's called sp2. And for four electron domains, you can have sp3, which is an s hybridized with three p orbitals. And if you look at the superscripts for each of these types of hybridization, remembering that the superscript for s is always 1, when you add up the superscripts, you get the number of electron domains. We're not going to worry about 5 and 6 electron domains. It's more complicated, and we don't need to deal with it. This, however, does need to be memorized. It also turns out there are two ways orbitals can overlap, end to end. S orbitals always overlap end to end with other s orbitals, other p orbitals, or other hybridized orbitals. The other way is side to side, and this can only be done with p orbitals. An end to end is called a sigma bond, and a side to side is called a pi bond. Single bonds are made up of just one sigma bond. A double bond consists of one sigma bond and one pi bond, and a triple bond is one sigma bond and two pi bonds. Once again, memorize this. So you may be given a molecule that looks like this. This happens to be methanoic acid. And then you may be asked various questions, such as, what is the geometry around the carbon atom? Well, the carbon atom has 3 electron domains. It has 3 bonding domains. So the electron domain geometry and the bonding domain geometry are the same. So that will be trigonal planar. You then may be asked, what is the hybridization of the carbon atom? Trigonal planar, 3 electron domains, sp2. They then may ask, what is the hybridization of the oxygen that is bonded to the hydrogen? There you have 4 electron domains, so that would be sp3. Which bond has both a sigma bond and a pi bond? Every bond has a sigma bond, but a pi bond can only occur at a double bond or a triple bond. So in this case, we would have to say the double bond between the carbon and the oxygen. Another example might look like this. This is glycine, the simplest amino acid. Question number 1, what is the approximate bond angles about each of the 2 carbons? And what is the hybridization of the orbitals for each of them? So if you look at carbon number 1, there are 4 electron domains and 4 bonding domains. That will make it tetrahedral with bond angles of 109 degrees. And since it's tetrahedral, that would be sp3. The carbon number 2 has 3 electron domains, so that is sp2. It's trigonal planar, so it's 120 degrees. What are the hybridizations of the orbitals on the 2 oxygens and the nitrogen? And what's the approximate bond angle at the nitrogen? Well, oxygen number 1 is tetrahedral, so that's sp3. Oxygen number 2 would be 3 electron domains, so that's sp2. The nitrogen has 4 electron domains, so it will be sp3. And because it has one non-bonded pair, the angles would be slightly less than 109, and for this it would be about 107 degrees. What is the total number of sigma bonds and the total number of pi bonds in the entire molecule? Well, the entire molecule has 8 bonds, so there have to be 8 sigma bonds. There's 1 double bond, and a double bond has 1 pi bond, so that would be the answer to that question. So to review, hybridization is the idea of mixing s and p orbitals to form new hybrid orbitals, and hybrid orbitals are used to explain the electron domain geometry around a defined central atom. Remembering that hybridization refers to a specific atom, and it refers to electron domain geometry. There are 3 types of hybrid orbitals. If you have 2 electron domains, you have sp hybridization. 3 electron domains is sp2 hybridization, and 4 electron domains is sp3 hybridization. And if you add up the superscripts in the hybridization, you should end up with a number of electron domains. Orbitals can overlap in 2 ways, end to end, which is called a sigma bond, or side to side, which can only be p orbitals, and those are called pi bonds. A single bond is 1 sigma bond, a double bond has a sigma bond and a pi bond, and a triple bond has 1 sigma bond and 2 pi bonds. And that finishes the discussion of molecular geometry. In the next section, we will see that in chemistry, function follows form, and form is dependent upon molecular geometry.